In a dusty frontier town with a night's whisper of ghosts and longing, a lonely widow hides behind her black veil, guarding a heart scorched by love and betrayal. Then, a drifter rides in, a man with storm eyes, a wounded past, and a soul as restless as the wind. When their paths cross, desire awakens something neither can name. But the past doesn't stay buried in Coyote Bend, and as secrets rise from the ashes, passion becomes both their salvation and their ruin. And one night, beneath thunder and candlelight, she breathes the words that stop his heart cold. Will you stay if I undress? It's not a question of flesh, but of faith, forgiveness, and a love brave enough to face the fire. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We've got more powerful stories coming every single day, and you don't want to miss them. Now, let's begin. The sun bled out across the Arizona horizon, spilling red fire over the endless stretch of desert. A lone rider cut through the heat haze. Cade Lawson, a man carved from dust and silence. His hat shadowed his eyes. His duster coat carried the memory of 100 storms. The horse beneath him moved like something half wild, half tired of running. Coyote Bend appeared out of the shimmer. A crooked cluster of buildings huddled against the wind. A sign swung on rusted chains. The Blue Cactus Saloon. Inside, laughter and fiddle music bled through the walls. Cade dismounted, boots sinking into sand, and pushed through the swinging doors. The chatter thinned. Every poker player paused mid-breath. The piano stuttered, then fell silent. He nodded once to no one in particular and ordered whiskey. Then she appeared. Eleanor Graves, wrapped in black lace and moonlight. Her veil barely hid the line of her jaw, the sorrow in her silver-gray eyes. When she looked at him, the world seemed to hush. Their gazes locked, two storms recognizing each other. "You don't look like you're here for poker," she murmured. "Depends who's dealin'," Cade said, voice low, steady. The saloon exhaled as if holding its breath too long. Somewhere in the corner, someone whispered, "That's the widow Graves." And for the first time in years, Cade smiled, because trouble finally had a name. The Blue Cactus Saloon throbbed with life that night. Whiskey fumes, fiddle strings, and the murmur of secrets. The lamps flickered against smoke-thick air, painting every face in gold and shadow. Behind the counter, Eleanor Graves moved like a ghost who'd learned to smile. Careful, graceful, untouchable. Cade Lawson sat at the far end of the bar, a silent shape in the haze. His whiskey remained untouched, his eyes never leaving her. The townsfolk noticed. They always noticed. At the corner table, May Dusty Carter leaned toward a pair of ranch hands, voice low and teasing. "Heard the drifter's got a past darker than her mourning dress," she said, eyes glinting. "And she's got a way of burying men who get too close." Laughter rippled through the room, uneasy, nervous. Eleanor froze for a heartbeat, then kept polishing a glass. Her fingers trembled only once. Cade stood, slow and deliberate, crossing the room until silence swallowed the laughter whole. He set a coin on the counter, silver, scarred, and heavy. "For the drink I didn't take," he said. Their eyes met again, the air thick enough to cut. "You defendin' me, Cowboy?" she asked softly. "Just don't like folks talkin' when they ain't got the truth," Cade replied. A hush followed him out into the night, boots echoing on the porch boards. Behind him, Eleanor's hand hovered over his untouched whiskey. Then she took a sip. The first anyone had ever seen her take since the fire. And somewhere, in that single taste of burn and smoke, she remembered what it felt like to be alive. Night fell soft and heavy over Coyote Bend. Inside her lonely house at the edge of town, Eleanor Graves sat by a flickering oil lamp. The light trembled across a charred photograph. Her and her husband, smiling before the world turned cruel. Half his face was burned away, leaving only a ghost beside her. She traced the image with a gloved fingertip, then closed the locket around it, as though shutting the past back into its coffin. Outside, thunder grumbled, distant but coming closer. A knock sounded, slow, hesitant. She stiffened. No one visited her after dark. When she opened the door, Cade Lawson stood there, hat dripping with rain. "Found this near your porch," he said, holding out the locket chain. She took it, eyes unreadable. "You shouldn't be walking this part of town. I don't scare easy. That's what they all say before they vanish." He smiled faintly, that small, dangerous curve that made her heart forget its rhythm. "You sayin' you'd miss me if I did?" She looked away. "I don't miss ghosts." The wind slipped between them like breath. He tipped his hat and turned to leave. From behind the lace curtain, she watched him fade into the storm. Her whisper was barely sound. "You have his eyes." The rain swallowed the words whole, carrying them into the dark, where secrets never stayed buried long. If you're still watching at this point, I know you're hooked. Go to the comments, rate this story out of 10, and tell us your favorite part so far. Smash that like button and let us know. Now let's continue. Morning sun spilled gold over Coyote Bend, but the town buzzed with something colder. Talk. In the general store, on the church steps, even by the well, tongues wagged like the windmill's creak. "The widow let the drifter walk her home," whispered Mrs. Kincaid, eyes wide as pie tins. "Reckon she's fixin' to bury another man," came the reply. By noon, the story had grown roots. May, Dusty, Carter tried to shoo off the gossip. But she fed it too. Every sharp word laced with worry. She knew what talk could do in a small town. Meanwhile, Eleanor Graves moved through the market with her veil down, chin high, ignoring the whispers that followed her like snakes. She paused at the blacksmith stand to trade for a new horseshoe, her voice calm but her pulse trembling. A cloud of dust rose at the edge of town. A rider approached, broad-shouldered, black coat, the glint of a vulture feather on his hat. Silas Creed. He dismounted slow, every motion deliberate, cruelly confident. The sheriff stepped out of his office, face pale. "You again, Creed?" "Just visitin' an old friend," Silas said with a smile that never reached his eyes. He walked through the street like he owned it, people shrinking away as he passed. When he reached the saloon doors, the piano inside faltered. Eleanor stood at the bar, sensing the air change, a familiar chill crawling down her spine. Silas removed his hat, eyes dark as gunmetal. "Afternoon, Mrs. Graves. Heard you're pouring drinks for drifters now." The room froze. Cade, seated near the back, rose slightly from his chair, hand drifting toward his holster. Eleanor's voice didn't shake. "You're not welcome here, Creed." He leaned close, whispering like a snake beneath her veil. "Neither was your husband, in the end." The words sliced through her like a blade. Then he turned and walked out, the feather on his hat trembling in the wind. When the saloon exhaled again, Eleanor's hands were steady. But her heart knew hell had just ridden back into town. Saturday night draped itself over Coyote Bend like a velvet curtain. Inside the Blue Cactus Saloon, lanterns burned low, and the piano played a tune slow enough to make even the bold forget their sins. Eleanor Graves stood behind the bar, her black dress catching the lamplight in soft ripples. When Cade Lawson entered, conversation dimmed to murmurs. He moved toward her, unhurried, boots whispering over the wood floor. "You dance, widow?" he asked, voice low but sure. "Not since the fire," she said, and her eyes betrayed the smallest flicker of longing. He offered his hand, rough, scarred, honest. The room held its breath. She hesitated, then took it. The music slowed further, and they moved together like two secrets trying not to be seen. The crowd watched, curious, envious, half afraid. Dusty leaned against the bar, biting her lip. "She's falling again," she thought. Then the saloon doors groaned open. Silas Creed stepped in, bringing the wind with him. His boots clicked, his smile sharp as glass. "Didn't know widows still waltzed," he drawled. The piano faltered to silence. Eleanor's hand tightened in Cade's. "Greater than." "What do you want, Creed?" Cade asked. Silas brushed invisible dust from his coat. "Oh, nothing much. Just making sure no one forgets the dead." He leaned close enough for Eleanor to smell the whiskey on his breath. "Greater than. Your husband's badge didn't burn all the way." And with that, he tipped his hat and walked out, leaving the silence heavier than gunpowder. The night after the dance stretched long and airless. Moonlight spilled through lace curtains in Eleanor Graves's bedroom, brushing over the framed photograph on her dresser. Her and Thomas, frozen in a happiness that no longer existed. Her hands trembled as she slid open the drawer of her nightstand. Inside, hidden beneath silk and dust, gleamed the charred U.S. Marshal badge. The edges were scorched black, the metal warped, but the name was still legible. Thomas Graves. She held it like something sacred and cursed all at once. The echo of Silas Creed's words rang in her ears. Your husband's badge didn't burn all the way. A knock came, gentle, steady. She froze. Then, slowly, she opened the door. Cade Lawson stood on her porch, hat in hand, the storm wind curling his coat around his legs. You left this behind, he said, holding out her shawl. His eyes flickered past her shoulder to the glow of lamplight inside. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. Maybe not, he replied. But I've got a feeling if I leave, you'll disappear. He took a step closer, close enough to see the faint burn scar along her wrist. That from the fire? Her breath caught. Some things don't heal right, she said. Before he could answer, a flash of metal glinted in the open drawer, the badge, half buried in silk. His eyes narrowed. You hidin' ghosts, Eleanor? She shut the drawer with a trembling hand. Aren't we all? Outside, thunder rolled across the plains, as if the past itself had heard her lie. Morning found Cade Lawson already in the sheriff's office, the air thick with cigar smoke and guilt. Sheriff Emmett Cole sat behind his desk, coat half-buttoned, eyes red-rimmed from whiskey and sleeplessness. You're up early, Lawson, he said without looking up. Didn't sleep much. Been thinking about that fella. Silas Creed Cole's hand twitched near the flask by his papers. You'd best let that be. Creed's got friends in dark places. He's got enemies, too, Cade said, his voice low. One of 'em's buried under ashes with a marshal's badge. That made the sheriff look up. The two men stared across the desk, silence heavy as gunmetal. Where'd you hear that name? Cole asked. From the widow, Cade replied. And from the way you just flinched. Cole leaned back, jaw tight. Thomas Graves was a good man. Too good. Got himself into things he shouldn't have. Like what? Justice? The sheriff sighed, the sound of a man who'd run out of excuses. The badge didn't burn, son. We buried it to keep Creed from coming after her. But you can't bury fire. Not in this town. Cade rose slowly. So you knew. You let her live with ghosts while Creed rode free. Cole's voice cracked like an old hinge. Sometimes survival ain't clean, boy. No, Cade said, stepping out into the sun. But it damn sure ain't cowardice either. As he left, Cole poured another drink, hands shaking. He whispered to the empty room. God help us. The past is riding back. If you're enjoying this story right now, subscribe. And don't forget to give this video a like. Rain came hard over Coyote Bend, slashing across rooftops and swallowing the moon. Lightning split the desert sky, white and merciless. Eleanor Graves rode alone, cloak clinging to her shoulders, hair unbound by the wind. Her horse's hooves struck mud and thunder in rhythm. She didn't notice Cade Lawson following her. Quiet as shadow, driven by suspicion and something dangerously close to love. She stopped near the old Silver Canyon mine, dismounting beneath the jagged cliffside. A figure stepped from the darkness. Silas Creed. You took your time, he drawled, water streaming off his hat brim. I shouldn't have come, she hissed. If they see us, they'll see what they've always seen. A guilty woman. He smiled, cruel and easy. You still got that badge, don't you? Proof you finished what we started. Her breath caught. You murdered him, Silas. I just buried the ashes. Creed's laugh cut through the rain. You think I killed your husband? No, darling. I saved you. He was gonna turn us in. You lit the match yourself. The world seemed to tilt. Liar, she breathed, but Cade, hidden behind the rocks, froze. The scar on his jaw throbbed. The vulture riders. He'd worn their mark once, bled for their crimes. Now the truth twisted in his gut. Creed stepped closer, voice like poison, greater than. You can't outrun what you are, Eleanor. The fire's still in your hands. She slapped him, the crack echoing with thunder. And you'll burn in it, she said. When she mounted to leave, Cade's horse whinnied. Too loud. Creed spun, gun drawn. Lightning flashed, and for a heartbeat, all three saw each other's faces. The past had finally come into the light. Dawn bled gray over the desert. The storm had passed, but the ground was soaked with secrets. Cade Lawson sat in his small cabin, cleaning his revolver by the dim light of a dying lantern. His shirt was half unbuttoned, his jaw clenched hard. The night's truth still echoed. Eleanor, Silas, the fire. He could still see her eyes in the lightning, haunted, pleading, brave. He'd come west to outrun his past. Now it had found him wearing a black veil. The door swung open without knocking. May, Dusty, Carter stood there, dripping rain and defiance. So it's true, she snapped. You're packing up. He didn't look up. Ain't my fight, Dusty. Ain't it? She stepped closer. You think she started that fire for fun? You think she wanted her name dragged through the dirt? That woman's been dying a little every day since the night her world burned down. Cade's hands stilled. She's fightin' Creed, Dusty said, voice trembling. And if you ride off, he'll finish what he started. He stood slowly, the weight of his gun belt hanging heavy. You don't know what I've done, Dusty. Maybe not, she said softly. But I know what you could be, if you stayed. For a long moment, the only sound was the desert wind pushing through the cracked door. Cade looked toward the horizon. The same horizon he'd chased his whole life. Then he snapped the cylinder of his revolver shut and holstered it. Tell her I ain't runnin' no more. Dusty smiled through her tears. She won't believe me. He pulled his hat low, eyes hard with resolve. Then I'll tell her myself. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, pale, uncertain, but alive. Just like him. Rain began again before dusk, soft at first, then harder, as if the heavens were trying to wash Coyote Bend clean. Eleanor Graves sat near the fire, the badge heavy in her palm, its edges biting into her skin. She had run out of tears long ago. Now there was only silence and the ache of too many memories. A knock came, 3 firm raps. She froze, heart stuttering. Then she opened the door. Cade Lawson stood there, drenched, hat in hand, eyes raw with decision. You shouldn't have come, she whispered. Couldn't stay away, he said. Not till I knew the truth. She turned, leading him inside. The lamplight painted everything gold and sorrowful. The rain drummed against the windows, steady as her pulse. You want the truth? She asked, voice trembling. It's ugly. Greater than. I've seen ugly, he said softly. It don't scare me. For a long moment she just stared at him, this man who'd walked into her ruin and refused to look away. Then she stepped closer, fingers clutching the edge of her robe. Her voice was barely breath when she said it. Will you stay if I undress? Cade's breath caught, not from desire but from the breaking in her tone. He understood. She wasn't offering her body. She was offering her truth. She laid the badge on the table, trembling. Greater than. They killed him, Cade. Burned him. I burned the rest, to bury the proof, to bury myself. But it never stopped burning. He reached for her hand, rough palm over silk. Greater than. Then let it burn, darlin'. We'll stand in the fire together. Outside, lightning split the sky, but inside, for the first time, she didn't feel alone. The morning came red as a wound. The desert air was thick with dust and final chances. Cade Lawson and Eleanor Graves rode side by side, silhouettes against the rising sun, the weight of unfinished stories pressing down on them both. The trail led to Crane Canyon, a hollow of stone where echoes carried like ghosts. Waiting among the boulders was Silas Creed, coat flaring in the wind, eyes sharp and smiling. Didn't expect company, Mrs. Graves, he called. Or should I say Miss Graves, now that the marshal's dead? Eleanor dismounted, calm and deadly. You killed him. You burned everything, Creed laughed. You lit the match. I just watched. Before Cade could answer, the first shot cracked the air. The fight exploded. Gunfire sparking off stone, horses screaming, dust blinding everything. Cade took a bullet across the shoulder but stayed on his feet, firing steady, sure. Eleanor dove for cover, her black dress streaked with sand and blood. Sheriff Emmett Cole appeared from behind the rocks, his badge glinting faintly. Greater than. Time to finish this, Creed, he growled. Creed turned, shot fired. Cole fell, a final redemption written in the dirt. Cade roared, stepping into the open, his revolver flashing once, twice, and Silas Creed dropped, the vulture feather drifting from his hat like a dying thing. Silence fell. Only the wind and Eleanor's sobs filled the canyon. Cade stumbled toward her, blood soaking his sleeve. Greater than. You all right? He rasped. She touched his face with shaking fingers. I am now. He smiled through the pain. Told you, I'd stay. And for a moment, beneath that blood-red sky, the ghosts finally let them breathe. Weeks bled into months. The desert healed slowly, just as hearts do. The Blue Cactus Saloon still opened its doors each night, though laughter came softer now, touched with memory. Beyond town, near the river bend where the cottonwoods leaned, a small ranch rose from the dust. Cade Lawson's hands and Eleanor Graves's courage built it board by board. The house smelled of fresh timber and coffee. Horses grazed in golden light. Cade's shoulder healed crooked, leaving a scar she kissed every morning. Eleanor still wore black, but now the veil stayed folded in a drawer. When she laughed, it sounded like wind through tall grass, something the desert had waited years to hear again. May, Dusty Carter, visited often, bringing gossip wrapped in pie tins. They're saying Creed's body was never found, she whispered one afternoon. Some folks swear they've seen a man in a black duster riding the ridge. Cade met Eleanor's gaze, steady, unreadable. Greater than. If he's out there, he said. He knows what he'll find if he comes back. That night, they sat by the porch as the sun melted into crimson. The river shimmered gold beneath it, like the fire that once tried to destroy them had finally gentled. Eleanor leaned her head against Cade's shoulder. Would you still have stayed, she murmured, if you'd known everything? He smiled, the kind that carried peace and pain together. Greater than. Darlin', I never left. A hush swept over the plains, a warm, whispering wind. For an instant, it almost sounded like her own voice carried back through time. Greater than. Will you stay if I undress? And somewhere deep in the desert, love answered again, soft as the dying light. They said the widow found peace at last, a cowboy's heart her final home. Some nights, when the wind crosses the canyon, you can still hear her whisper, soft as a prayer. Will you stay if I undress? And the desert answers, steady and low, always. Thank you for watching till the end. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. We'll be dropping brand new, powerful stories every single day. See you on the next one.